Hey, Fatih.
Hey Tracy, how are you? Since
I'm good.
2 weeks ago. Good. You have seen I booked time with you, yeah?
I did.
Yeah, cool. Hi Andrea. Third time today. You will be bored meeting me.
Hello again, Fatih. Hi, Tracy.
Hi. Fatih, you're never boring.
Hi Mike. Good to hear that, Tracy.
Steve will join us. He had an urgent matter to take care of. He had to go wrangle a rattlesnake.
I think the moral of that story is don't live in areas where rattlesnakes need wrangling, but that's probably not an option for Steve.
You get good at it.
Yeah, small arms fire is probably how I would handle rattlesnakes. So I'm not sure that's Steve's probably much kinder than that.
You know, they're not aggressive snakes, and it's cold out, so it's a good time to get them when they're lethargic. You can practically just pick them up.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of snakes. So hopefully this session is not being recorded with my terrible biases.
I love snakes. I have to admit, I love bull snakes in particular. And I have a dog who's an extremely good snake killer. And she puts this bark out, and I know immediately it's a snake. And I run out there to try to catch her, and she has it killed him like instantly. And it always breaks my heart. It's like, oh, she killed a bull snake. I'm one of those animal people.
Hey, snakes are certainly wonderful ways to control rodents, right? They're some of the best rodent control you can possibly get, and rodents are much worse than snakes. So
yes, absolutely. That's my thought. So did everybody enjoy CDCon?
Yes, thank you. Thanks very much, Fatih. Thank you very much, Melissa. Thank you, so many people. What a great experience.
I thought it was a really, really great conference. I did.
Yeah.
That everyone enjoyed. Yeah, I enjoyed it as well as an individual. It was good.
So, and CDF Mini Summit at Open Source Summit in Europe is happening September. Is that right? It's in September that the mini summit occurs?
Yeah, 18th of September, Monday, I believe. Oh, yeah, I can put the link to meeting minutes. And CFP is open until next Wednesday, 31st. Bilbao, Spain. The food is great. That's what they say.
In Spain, I may be there.
Yeah.
And Melissa, Swamp Up is on the 13th.
Yes, it is. Pretty exciting. Our customer user conference in San Jose. So yeah, I've got some pretty busy September. I think it's going to be full of pretty.
There's a direct flight from San Francisco to Spain.
Yeah, no kidding.
Right to Bilbao.
Thanks for always taking notes.
Yeah. I'm unfortunately missing the party because I already have speaking commitment for that date. But good news is that I will be in Bilbao 1 month later speaking about Jenkins, YAML, and test containers anyway. And CDF will be in the equation.
Ortelius had their visionary summit on Friday. So I am conferenced out right now. We had fun though.
Nice. If you want to add details about upcoming events, I think we mentioned Swarm map. Swamp up, yeah. Sorry.
So yeah, Swamp Up September 13th.
Do we already have dates for DevOps World Set?
So they've announced publicly 4 or 5 locations, and they'll be happening around the world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good point. I tell you what, rather than delay the meeting, I'll put some notes in there on DevOps World Tour as well. It's good for people to be aware that that's happening. Thanks.
Yeah, I've seen that there would be different locations, but right now the only event that is actually announced is October 18th in Silicon Valley. And for the rest, there is neither date nor location.
Then let's not even put it in the notes then. I wasn't sure what had been announced publicly. I would have just extracted the public information. If you've already done that, Oleg, let's leave it out.
Okay.
It'll wait.
Yes, or I'm doing it in parallel.
Okay. Okay, can we get started? I think we have a few folks joined the meeting today. Okay, welcome everyone to the TOC meeting. Today is May 23rd. My name is Andrea Frittoli from IBM, and feel free to mark your attendance on the meeting notes. Just share the link to the notes in the chat. Okay. Right, so I wanted to start the meeting today with updates on our end user representatives in the TOC. So I wanted to welcome our new members, Tadisi Sanika from Apple Inc. and Neil McGonigal from Fidelity Investment. I saw Neil join the meeting briefly, but I don't see him anymore. But yeah, so just to not put you on the spot right away, maybe Tadisi, you would like to give a short introduction about yourself?
Sure. Good morning. My name is DC Sanika. As mentioned, I am with Apple. I do Spinnaker. My team works on the open source Spinnaker project, but I'm also super interested in all the work that the CD Foundation does. Internally, I am pushing interoperability at Apple, and really excited about CD events and all the work that the CD Foundation does. I am hoping to support and be very active with the with this group and the interoperability SIG to kind of further that mission and all of the things that has been done so far. I just really want to contribute to that and make sure that everybody is aware of it and taking full advantage. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Tadisi. Welcome again. Look forward continue working with you. And also welcome, Neil. I see you just joined the meeting. Would you like to say a couple of words to introduce yourself to the team?
Yeah, sure. Hey, everybody. Sorry about any background noise in advance. I have people in doing work in the house, so it's kind of hit and miss. So if you hear any noise, that's what it is. Yeah, so basically my role in Fidelity, I work with Jerry McMahon and ALM, and at the moment there's a huge drive to build our open source community within Fidelity, and I've been helping to do that both within ALM and across CAPE, Cloud and Platform Engineering, and then across wider Fidelity as well. And so that's really, I guess, how I ended up here, passionate about open source and looking at how we can really build that community and grow the community within Fidelity, not just as consumers, but building a brand as contributors to open source and building that muscle within the firm as well.
That's great. Thanks. Thanks, Neil, and welcome again. I'm looking
Thank you.
forward to working with you. And a big thanks to our former TOC members, user representative Justin Abrams from eBay and Emil Meckmark from Ericsson. And yeah, looking forward to continue working with both of you as well. Yeah, so welcome to the new members. Okay, yeah, moving forward, a few things on the agenda for today. The first thing I wanted to discuss is project representative elections. And then there are a few other items about licenses and governance updates. But yeah, if there are other things that you would like to bring up, please add them to the agenda so we can discuss them and we can switch priorities. So for the project representative election, as you would know, we have the election process starting. I don't know, Fatih, would you like to say something about this?
Yeah, so thanks everyone for already starting with different things like voter registration and project nominations. As Andreas said, we kicked off the election process for this year's TOC project representatives on May 4th, based on conversations we had in previous TOC meetings. And we put this pull request up there for your review. So May 4th was the date we kicked off the process, and May 15th is when we published the eligible voters based on the criteria we have documented in the process. Any people who had 10 or more commits to any of our projects as well as CDF are considered as eligible voters. In addition to that, we also opened up a form for people to register themselves or fellow community members as eligible voters. So that form is available as well, and it will be open until May 26th. And yesterday, we created an issue on CDF Foundation repo, where the projects could nominate their representatives there, and each project can nominate one candidate there. And then that nominations will close on June 5th. So all the projects we have in the CDF, 9 of our projects, can nominate someone there. And then once the nomination period is closed, we will collect those nominations and send to the list of final candidates on CDF TOC mail list as well as on Slack channel. And once that is done, we will issue ballots using OPA vote to everyone who is considered as eligible voters, plus anyone who put their requests to be registered as eligible voters. And then the voting will be closed on June 26th, with announcement happening on June 28th, and the term begins on July 1st. So that is the timeline. And as you might have noticed, we had a few more commits on this PR based on when things became available, like the voter registration form, as well as the nomination issue. And I believe the PR is finalized now with everything we need for the election to happen there. So any reviews will be appreciated. Any questions from anyone?
Thanks a lot, Fatih. Personally, I reviewed the PR and I approved it on my site. And yeah, I hope we can get some more reviews and approve it and merge it soon. Ideally, if I don't know if folks have the chance to see the PR yet. But maybe we can try and give like a end date by when we should merge it, so we have the PR merged in time for the election. Yeah, would it make sense if I say that by the end of the week, if there are no negative comments on the PR, we shall merge it? Would that work for folks?
That works for me.
Works for me.
Me as well.
Yes, I said no objections.
Sounds good. Thanks, everyone. Sorry that you were saying something.
No, I had said no objections, but I was on mute. So yeah, no objections.
Same.
Thanks, Melissa. Okay. On a related topic, I just put up a PR as well about the TOC vacancies policies. As we are rotating people on the TOC, I thought it would be good to define what happens in a few cases, and that's not documented today in our policies. The charter defines a lot of the policies associated with the TOC, but it also gives us freedom as a TOC to define additional policies that can be maintained in the TOC repo, so we don't need to put them back in the charter. So I define them here as part of the TOC repo. So I propose them. What happens in case of a leave of absence, so kind of temporary absence of a TOC member, or stepping down or changing affiliation. So I would appreciate again reviews on this. I can go through what I propose quickly if that makes sense. But hopefully, I mean, I took inspiration from other existing policies from projects like Tecton or other open source project, including the TOC, the CNCF project template. But yeah, so the idea is that if any member wants to take a temporary leave of absence, there can be a stand-in that is proposed for that person, depending on the duration of the leave of absence. So this matches what we do in Tecton. So if the length of the leave is greater or less than 1/4 of the total term, so as a different behavior. So if there is less than 1/4, then it could be a stand-in nominated. Otherwise, we need a new election. And for the stepping down case, I took inspiration from the CNC, what the CNCF defines. And that's basically, we can try and avoid an election if a member needs to step down by taking the candidate with the next most votes from previous election for the specific seat. And if that's not available, then we can do an election, a special election. But the idea is to try to avoid running as too many elections. In any case, the special election will elect someone that will fill the person until the end of their original mandate, so that we keep the elections aligned as it was before. So if someone has a 2 years mandate and after 7 months they need to leave, then the new person will take the seat for the remaining 1 year and 5 months. And in case of change of affiliation, the policy that I propose is that unless there is any specific issue like conflict identified by the TOC or by the TOC member themselves, there is no change required in terms of TOC, but the change in affiliation must be communicated. So that's the only thing. So that's in a nutshell. Any
the only thing I just approved it because everything looks good, and after I approved it, I thought of this. We may want to just put a sentence in there that any, I don't want to use the word disputes, but any thing that's not clear should go to the governing board to resolve. Something along those lines,
Mhm.
just like a catch-all. I don't know the exact
Makes
wording
sense.
on it.
You mean anything that is not defined in the policies, or yeah?
Like in the change of affiliation where somebody thinks that they don't have a conflict, but other folks on the TOC do feel there is a conflict,
Okay.
that would be resolved by the governing board.
Yeah.
I
makes
think
sense
it
to
would
me.
be reasonable.
That's what I mean by a catch-all.
Okay, I will add that. Thanks, Steve. Any other comments? Great. So I'll update this, and if I can get more reviews or comments, I think it would be nice as we have new members starting on the TOC that we have a clear policy for them to know what to expect as well. Yeah, thanks.
Let's put just a quick correction in there. Again, apologies for the background noise. The TOC email list that you referenced there, is that that's up on the TOC area in GitHub, is it? It's in probably one of the documents.
Yes, I can document it there. Thanks, Neil.
No worries. I'll try and read through everything at some point over the coming days and weeks, so I may have more questions.
Absolutely, no, that's a great point. Everything here. Okay. All right. Then moving forward, well, these are not upcoming events, but if there are other upcoming events that you're aware of, feel free to add them here to the notes. That's useful for everyone to be aware. I don't think we have any project update today. So I think originally, Jithan marked a screwdriver presentation in May, but I think it's not been scheduled yet, so will probably be postponed to June, but I will check in with Jithan what his plans are for that. Just a comment, we are still missing an update apart from screwdriver, from Shipwright project and Persia. So if, anyone is connected to those communities would like to bring this up, it would be great to get an update for those two projects as well.
I'll take care of the Persia one.
Thank you, Steve.
Yep.
All right. Next, one point that Brad brought up. I don't see him in the meeting today, but I just relayed on his behalf. So Brad discovered in some of the CD events and also CD Foundation repos that the author was not set in the license files. Just an example. So in the license file for CD events back, we had copyright and then still the kind of template here. So it's good to have actually something like the CD events authors in case of CD events there.
So, so on that, the copyright, I believe, should actually be the Linux Foundation, the copyright owner. Because when you join a project, you transfer all of your IP over to the Linux Foundation.
Yes and no. So the thing that we have Apache license that basically argues that you transfer it to the community, and it doesn't really matter who owns the copyright in this particular field. And historically, I don't know about any open source project that would join foundation and would clean up their copyrights.
Well, we did that as part of our, when we brought Ortelius in, it was on our checklist to ensure that the copyright was over to the Linux Foundation. Now, I'm not to say that we have every single file perfect, but
Yeah, well, you already did a good job. Because yeah, like problematic thing here that you can just arbitrarily change copyright of any file, even if it's on Apache v2. And yeah, we saw this legal thing is before that once there is a line, for example, in source code file, it's free to use. It's fully up under the Apache v2 license, so there is no restriction. But still, you can just go ahead and change the copyright. So in my case, I don't mind if somebody puts a Linux Foundation there, but yeah, frankly speaking, I'm not going to do so in my repositories.
sounds good.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
I guess it might be something for Brett to follow up, but yeah.
Yeah, I think it's more important to have the license file than not have one.
Yeah, and probably something then instead of the to-do template.
Yeah.
So in this command.
Yeah, I think I don't think Brett meant to bring up like a legal discussion on this. It was more like in some cases we copied the license file and there is a template there. It's better to have like a proper format than some YYY name of copyright owner there. Yeah, so I just wanted to remind project to check that when they set up their licenses, they have a valid entry in there. But yeah, thanks for comments on those. But do we need to clarify then? I think, as you said, Oleg, it shouldn't be mandatory or should not be required to have Linux Foundation in there.
Well, it's basically something for the foundation to decide. Because the thing is that you cannot just transfer any copyright to the Linux Foundation. So basically what we had with trademark and Jenkins, when we were unable to transfer Jenkins trademark to the Linux Foundation, because it's a wrong organization type in the US. And for example, Jenkins trademark is formally owned by LF Charities, which is 543.c organization, while the Linux Foundation itself is not. And if someone requested us to transfer the copyright formally to the Linux Foundation, I think we wouldn't be able to do so, even if we wanted. And this is something, well, maybe it's something for the LF legal team to figure out and to provide an advice.
Yeah, I'm confused too, because even just in our project lifecycle documentation, we have, one of the acceptance criteria is adherence to the foundation's IP policy. What that is, I guess, I don't know the details of that.
Yeah, and I've been told like we were originally under the Affero license. And when we talked to Chris Anisich, he said that was fine, but the long term, we'd want to go ahead and vote to change the license over to like a Apache 2. But other licenses like MIT are valid as well as part of what the Linux Foundation accepts. So I'm definitely on the same page with you, Melissa, and trying to figure out what they like to see.
Yeah, when we had this conversation with the legal for Percy onboarding, for example, like copyright can stay as is Apache, like JFrog orders or Percy orders, so that was fine. The legal is involved when there is a trademark to be transferred, and in Percy case there wasn't, and everything was fine, and license headers, as long as they reflect the reality, like Percy orders, that was fine. And actually, this is the first time I've seen a license header with the Linux Foundation there, Steve. So I will definitely check that, which may be okay, but I will check that.
Yep. And then I know like artwork usually gets transferred under Creative Commons, which is separate than your code base, so it gets even more interesting.
I think the word transfer there may be well, at least in the Jenkins community, I don't believe we transfer anything in terms. I believe the original author retains ownership of or retains copyright of their artwork.
Yeah, well, so basically there are authorship and there is copyright, which are two completely different things. And even to be explicit, there are something like 12 versions of Creative Commons with different specifics and with different requirements to attribution, to copyright, etc. But yeah, ultimately, when we talk about licenses, we normally put author there. Literally, we don't care about copyright for the majority of cases.
And besides the trademark, I think if there's a patent as well, so trademark and patents are transferred.
Oh, well, patents are complicated.
Oh yeah, I'm
because,
not saying.
Yeah, so first, if you have Apache license v2, then it's better because it's at least written there. If you have a contributor license agreement, it's written there. If you have a MIT license and if you don't have a contributor license agreement, there is nothing explicit about patents in your project.
Right.
Well, for Jenkins, for example, it's also arguably complicated because we don't require everyone to sign CLA. Well, so if someone is about to come up and do patent trolling for Jenkins code base, yeah, it's going to be an interesting case. But yeah, for the majority of the projects, Apache license v2 should provide enough protection. This is why basically it's advised for every enterprise doing open source. So MIT license, yeah, it's good for academia, but yeah.
Okay, thanks. And about the logos, so I noted that usually Creative Commons license is used, the Apache Creative Commons. But regardless of the license, the authorship of the logos is not changed, right? Okay. Anything else on licenses? Okay. Next item I wanted to bring up. So we reviewed a bit the status of the governance documentation of the various projects, and I think as you see, it's important for us to remind the different projects and support them if needed to make sure that they have good open source governance documented. And I think the status is a bit varied across our projects right now. So in city events, we do have a bootstrap governance, but we need to move to like a full governance since the project now has been there for some time. So that's something that we need to do on the city event project. I think for Jenkins X, the governance documentation is pretty clear and extensive. So that's seems to be a very good state. For Jenkins X, there is at least some basic documentation for what the technical oversight committee is, what the members are, what the election process is and responsibilities. For Ortelius, there is, yes, so there is governing board elections, and there is guidelines and election documentation available. So that seems good. I think on Tecton side as well, also we have good governance, and also this is one of the criteria for graduation. So this documentation has been reviewed in that point. The Peership project is similar to CD events. They have a bootstrap governance that needs to be updated to a full governance documentation. For Screwdriver, I was not able to find clear governance documentation. There is this community repo where the meetings are documented. But yeah, if someone knows about the documentation or the governance documentation for the project, it would be good to have it documented. So there is a contributing open source community growth plan. But yeah. Anyway, so if someone has more information, please let us know. For Shipwright also, there is a community repo. But I think it would be good to have more documentation on the governance side, because I couldn't find any information about or a TOC or steering committee or elections for the project. And I think finally for Spinnaker, there is this governance repository, and I think the Spinnaker governance has been recently updated, and the governance information is available here. So there are different roles, definition of the technical oversight committee. Yeah. But yeah, I wanted to bring up this topic. I mean, also mainly to remind that the project representative that this is important, and also that as a TOC, we are a foundation, we are available to provide help if needed in setting this up. But yeah, any comments on this topic from anyone? No. Okay.
Yeah, one thing to mention that well, basically in the CNCF there is CNCF TOC contributor strategy. Also there is to-do group and inner source commons. So these are three big entities that actually provide a lot of hints for open source governance. So I think for us it would be interesting at some point to link the best known practices. But honestly, I do not think that there is any need to define something on our own. There is already quite a lot of stuff. The last one is inner source commons. So they have inner source commons patterns, including basically a repository that you can fork for setting up open source community driven governance.
That sounds great. Thanks. Do you think it would make sense to document this three somewhere in our TOC docs?
So I can take an action item because, well, basically I contribute to 2 or 3 of these allocations. So yeah, I can tentatively put it on my side.
Thank you. All right. Right. Next, something that I had put for the previous meeting, but we didn't have time to discuss it. since we have a bit more time, I thought we could bring this up again. I think this is something that you brought up before, Oleg. The question about the project pipeline stages that we have. So today we have incubating and graduated in the CDF. In other foundations like the CNCF, they have an additional sandbox status that is an optional. And yeah, I wanted to raise again the question, whether do we need a sandbox for projects? Personally, I think a sandbox status for project might provide a lower bar for a project to join, with also lower investment on the foundation side for the project, because they can join the sandbox, but there is kind of limited support from marketing point of view for the project. But it's at least it provides a neutral home for the project to be part of the foundation. And then if the project can successfully grow into incubating state, then they will gain the additional support from the foundation. Yeah, so personally, I lean towards saying that this might be beneficial to kind of increase the or make it easier for new project to join our project pipeline. But I wanted to basically raise this topic and see what folks thought about it.
I think the sandbox stage is a good idea.
Yeah, I also agree. So initially I proposed it again, as Andrei said, to simplify onboarding of new projects and basically open the floodgates. So whomever wants to join as a sandbox with basically minimum to no requirements, they could join and have some kind of affiliation. Well, basically it's beneficial for the foundation because we don't have projects in the pipeline. Something solid in terms of the application, and maybe we could take some smaller projects. So for example, update CLI, we were talking about a few other things that would be interested to go through these stages and maybe get some advantages from CDF marketing engine. And at the same time, yeah, it also make the things more lively in the foundation itself.
I don't think all those are valid points, but at this point, I don't think that we need a sandbox stage. I don't think we have enough coming through to be concerned about it.
This question of basically chicken and egg.
Yeah,
So,
I agree. I think that's the point.
We could have open source projects coming to us today, and if we felt that they did not have a big enough community, which is usually the problem, if 2 or 3 people is not going to cut it, then we might start thinking about a sandbox. But I feel like we should just have clear requirements to become an incubating project and get projects that are at that level. I think that the sandbox for the CNCF just kind of exploded on them. And I just don't know if we have that many to worry about. And personally, I would rather us spend time thinking about what we can be doing to get more collaboration between us and the Open SSF. The Open SSF doesn't accept any kind of open source project, so we could potentially be grabbing some of those open source projects and bringing them in. But I think that we need to spend time building a sandbox program at this point? No, maybe in the future, but I don't think it's something that we need to be concerned about at this point. I think there's other more important things for us to be doing.
So how many do we have in the pipeline right now?
0.
0, to my knowledge.
Okay, so is this a question of avenues to bring in projects? Because you can make this sandbox as restrictive as we want to make it. I mean, that's not really the issue. The issue is like, how do we form a line of projects for us to evaluate and want to get in? I think you make
regardless
a great point
of
about
the name of the status, sandbox or otherwise.
Exactly. So it's
Yeah,
like,
so that's what I'm saying.
we are
We
in
should just
control
focus
of
on
that. But
not
we are
focus
in
on having
control
this.
of that. And I do think that the sandbox is a good understandable way to kind of grasp that for smaller projects and help them build community, because we were talking about a marketing engine. You know, I mean, I literally just heard CDF marketing engine mentioned. And so it's like, how are we leveraging this marketing engine to draw in projects? And following some other examples, even going to the open, like you said, you know, those are all possible. But I don't see how exploring this and seeing where it goes precludes us from taking these other avenues.
Just time, and I can promise you, as a person who started an open source community, there is nothing that when you become a incubating sandbox or otherwise project, that it brings new contributors to your project. You have to bring the contributors with you. So the sandbox status is, you know, maybe in our next call, we should review the CNCF statuses. But I just don't feel like at this point, a sandbox is a critical discussion for us. And we don't have anybody even in the pipeline. Let's go look for some people in the pipeline. And quite honestly, bringing a project in at an incubating status, as opposed to a sandbox status, gives us leverage over the CNCF. So if we're going to have the same levels as the CNCF, more than likely they'll go to the CNCF. But if they can be brought in as an incubating status with us, it's going to make us a more attractive option. And I have tried to recruit, and everybody knows this, I have worked at trying to recruit open source projects. The sandbox status is a no-go for a lot of them.
And what would be the benefit differences between a sandbox and incubating? We're talking about the marketing engine, and I don't see there would be much difference in the marketing engine. If you get one extra webinar a year or something like that, I don't think is going to make a difference.
We don't have one. We don't have a marketing engine for our open source community outside of the exposure we get through CDCon, which is awesome. But Roxanne, I mean, we can get post shared, and there is a place to put a playlist together. But outside of that, the communities themselves have to do that work. That is their job. And to think that it doesn't help just because you're part of the Linux Foundation doesn't mean you're gonna have tons of people running to your project to contribute. You still have to go out and recruit, and you have to find your peeps, so to speak. And I have tried recruiting open source communities. Directive was what I really thought we were going to get, and the investor said no, they didn't want to move forward with it. Everybody knows that we just recruited Red Hat and brought in Emporus as a sub project because they only have 3 people working on the project with the goal of building their community so that they may be able to get to an incubating status, with the Ortelius community helping them do that recruitment. So I don't know what the sandbox status is going to bring to our potential open source communities. I don't. And I think that giving them incubating status as opposed to starting at a sandbox is a really good marketing tool for us to compete with CNCF, because most open source teams want to be in the CNCF. That's where it's sexy, I guess.
Well, it's because it's a serious marketing leverage. Being a member of the CDF is arguably not. But yeah,
there's not that big, honestly. Oleg, there's so many projects in the CNCF. If it's co-branding that brings the marketing, I'll agree with that. But other than that, there's not much.
Well, I can only support you. I passed through projects through CNCF incubating and sandbox, and in basically good conscience, I wouldn't recommend it to any community manager. But the thing is that at least it being a CNCF incubating project, CNCF sandbox project is clear brand. Being a CDF project, let's say as a brand, it's much weaker. And
so that's what we should be focusing on, not building a sandbox, is how do we build a stronger brand? And one way to do that is for us to start looking at how we can work more closely with supply chain and the open SSF. And they have been very clear there right now, they're not interested in bringing in any open source projects. So that may be where we could go find some and incubate some security open source projects. So those are my thoughts. I mean, you know, I've worked on this. I've called, I've done dialing for dollars in open source communities. I've reached out to folks to try to get them to come into the CD Foundation. And there's always something that gets in the way. I just don't think a sandbox status is going to change much for us. And I think that offering incubating status when they would be at a sandbox status elsewhere is a benefit. And I do think that if we aligned ourselves more closely with OpenSSF, which is the shiny new object in the room right now, that we get better branding.
Yeah. So I agree with you. And what it means that we should provide a way to join directly the incubating status, or probably even the graduated status for projects that are really established. But Sandbox could be open for something like a project where 2 or 3 maintainers tinker with it and want to get some affiliation and to get engaged. So that wouldn't be even considered a sandbox for CNCF and for other things. So basically projects that are really yet to be created in terms of the community, in terms of the adoption, but seems to be interesting to the CDF due to whatever reason. So I basically agree with everything you said. I just think that we could have a bar for Sandbox even lower.
I just think it would bring down our incubating status lower.
Maybe.
Yeah, and maybe that's what I'm saying. Maybe on another on our next call, we should review what this what the bars are. Some of them in the past have been a little bit ridiculous. Like you have to have 250 stars on GitHub. That's kind of like counting lines of code to see how productive you are.
Basically, it's just NPM library that stays on NPM repo for 1 day.
So I think we should review before we make a decision on doing anything. I think we should review what is required for incubating status before we do anything else.
And also what you get for graduated. You know, what are our benefit statements for each level?
And I honestly think we should actively go out and start looking at projects that would like to be part of the OpenSSF. Because the OpenSSF is not, they want to do, right now, they're just doing working groups. They're not bringing projects in.
Okay, great. Thanks. Good discussion on these. So I things that I gathered as actions, I think we should review schedule for the next meeting, discussion about or review for the bar for incubating, what it means to be an incubating project. In terms of benefit statement, you mentioned, Steve. Yeah, I think we had some work we started on also updating our project benefits, and I think we should continue on that. And once that's ready, we can bring it to this group, so that also helps us as an input. And also we should reach out to projects in the security area or in the OpenSSF, since the OpenSSF is not updating it's not accepting new projects. So yeah, so I can schedule the first one for the next meeting, so we can discuss about that. I think myself and Melissa, we started working on the benefits, but it kind of got on hold because of all the conferences and everything. We were quite pretty busy. But we should resume on that. And if anyone is interested in collaborating as well, let us know. And for the third one, Tracy, do you have any recommendation on how to act on that? We should just reach out to the do
mean for
we
the
have a list?
OpenSSF?
Because we should reach out to the OpenSSF, or do you think we have a list of projects we can tap
I think that we
into
should reach
somewhere?
out to the OpenSSF TAC and get
Okay.
a sense of what their, if we could just schedule a joint meeting between us. And get a sense of what their plans are for projects. And chat with them about the possibility of, because to be quite honest, most of their projects would be part of the DevOps pipeline, you know, something that has to be automated through some kind of a workflow. Even generating SBOMs are a key part of the workflow, and that's pretty basic stuff. So I feel like we should be having a discussion with them about projects, and if they're planning on starting projects. And if they're not, could, you know, we would like to grab those projects. So if they have projects coming to them, like Persia pitched really hard, and they were not ready. And at that time, they said that they really just wanted to manage working groups. So I think we have to get a sense of where they're going and let them know that we're interested in building a broader coalition of projects that include security and supply chain in the DevOps pipeline. So I think we need to get a meeting with they call it the TAC, the Technology Advisory Council. Or committee, their committee. And their committee is nominated by the board. So I don't even think it's an elected committee. So it's very different.
Yeah, I mean, I would be open to join such a meeting. I don't know what the other people in the TOC think.
I'm happy to reach out to like Bob and Ava and I can't think of the other person who's, but I'm happy to reach out to Bob Calloway and ask if they'd be open to I'm sure they will, a discussion. So sort of a cross-pollination discussion.
Any thoughts or anyone who would like to be involved in the discussion? Well, at least I don't hear a no from anyone, so I think we should go ahead, Tracy. I'd be happy to be involved, and hopefully we can recruit more people. And
I will send an email to Bob, and I'll CC Brian as well, even though he's not the GM anymore. I think it would be good for him because he's the CTO. So I think he should be on there too.
Great. Yeah, thanks for that, Tracy. All right, we only have 2 minutes left. Any last minute comment or thoughts or topic, something we should schedule for the next time?
I think, Andrea, maybe next time we should do the SIG updates. Those always get left off. It's been a long time since we've discussed those in the TOC meetings.
Thanks, Melissa. Yeah. I'll put it then earlier in the agenda for next time.
Perfect.
That's good. Thanks. All right. Well, thanks everyone. Thanks again for joining today, Neil and Gadizi. And until next time, have a good day.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thanks.
Thanks.